When you look at Europe, it seems to be at crossroads. So we had this investment plan that was actually signed off on the Commission, but we're now seeing a really worrying number of cases rising because of COVID-19. What countries will do better than others in Europe?
Well, I think that it's really going to be a question of how people can handle the rise in cases and keeping measures limited. I don't think we're going towards massive confinements. Clearly, some countries like Spain are struggling more. Germany has more, I think, self-discipline to start with, so it wouldn't be a surprise for them to come out ahead. But overall, Europe needed the summer months, it needed tourism, and it needed July and August to be open, and now it's going to pay the price a bit for that.
Well, how punitive is the euro rising for the European economies, and when do they start saying something to the U.S.?
Well, I think that's going to be the key question, and we're going to see at the next ECB meeting that probably a strong euro is becoming a headwind. Europe is a very open economy. It's externally focused. It depends on its exports. And, at the beginning, a stronger euro is positive, and at some point it becomes costly, and we're getting closer to that level.
Esty, what is the shadow, if you will, into September and into October? What's the thing unobservable that we need to try to observe?
Hopefully not too much that we don't know about or that we're not yet looking for. I think we absolutely need Congress to get together and pass the CARES Act too. I think that's probably one of the critical aspects where markets are pretty optimistic about it, and we expect the next phase to be delivered. But I think that's going to be critical for the equity market rally.
How do you fold in Q4 into Q1? There's a number of houses, I'm going to say led by Peter Hooper at Deutsche Bank, really looking for a slowdown if we don't get stimulus. Do you just frame out a slowdown into 2021?
We know that the momentum is slowing, and we know that in areas where cases are rising more than others, the momentum slows even more because you do have a little bit of self-discipline happening as well. So Q4 was not going to be as strong as Q3. Now, if we don't get the stimulus, it might be a bit more abrupt, although the amount of extra income that Americans received up until August was, above expectations. So that might carry them through a little bit longer. But we do expect Congress to make get a new package. So hopefully we won't have this fiscal cliff we're talking about.
Where do you see inflation heading, Esty? Is it something that we should start worrying about? Or, do we risk deflation pressures first?
Well, we just got the Eurozone numbers, and, we're back in negative territory, at least not on core, but on the rest. And we know central banks are still more worried about this being a deflationary event than an inflationary one. I don't think deflation is a risk, but I also don't think inflation is a risk and won't be a risk for quite some time. The Fed is trying to underpin inflation expectations, hoping inflation is going to get to 2% or even a bit above for a certain period of time. But I don't think it's a concern for now at all. A lot of the fiscal stimulus we've seen is income replacement. It's not adding to it. Liquidity is abundant, but it hasn't, made its way through the system completely either. So I think still some time before inflation is a big worry.
We haven't even mentioned Brexit. If there is a hard Brexit, or if we go to WTO rules come January, how much will Europe and which country specifically will suffer more than maybe even the UK itself?
Well, so I think the question is, what does a hard Brexit look like? And even if they don't come to some agreement, and we had this conversation, I think, earlier in the year with our clients thinking, if the deal doesn't go through, what happens? And you basically think for some of these key strategic industries, they're going to come up with some safety net policies to make sure you can move forward and you don't have a total stoppage of activity on January 1st. So we'd expect something like that to happen. So whether that comes out as mini deals or whether that's more emergency later in the year, plenty of countries are at risk. but hopefully there's enough will to get those strategic industries in line to avoid the worst case scenarios.